Hello, everybody, and welcome to another show of Revit Pure Live. I am your host, Nicolas Catelier. I am an architect and BIM specialist based in Quebec City, Canada. The goal of Revit Pure Live is to help you become a better Revit user. Sometimes the show is done all by myself, but most of the time I do have guests that come on the show to share their expertise, like is the case today. Before moving on with the guest, I will announce the next show. So we're getting close to this season finally. So episode number 17 will be with Jeffrey Pinheiro, aka the Revit Kid. So one of the most famous Revit personality out there. I've been on his own show, BIM After Dark, 3 times so far I think so, and it's always been a blast, always fun to talk with Jeff. And on this session we'll be talking, the title is The Art of Teaching Revit. So we'll be comparing notes and talking about what it means to be a BIM content creator, what it means to teach Revit or BIM generally speaking, and asking him how he got there and what's the plan for him in the future. That should be a lot of fun. I always like to ask people in the chat where they're from, so please let us know where you are watching from in the chat. Before we keep moving with the guests, a couple of things I want to talk about. Revit Pure pamphlets. Since 2016, I've prepared 20 PDF guides about a wide variety of topics: scheduling, phases, linking CAD files, coordinates, scope boxes, finishes, line weights, shared sites, and many others. You can get the entire collection for free at revitpure.com/pamphlets. Show notes. So today we're talking about Revit Wood families mostly, and there's a lot of them that you can download for free. I've created a link where we'll find the plugin we'll be talking about, and some of the families like the timber curtain wall family. So you can go to revitpure.com/live. The link should also be in the description of the video. And also, if you check the blog, this link, revitpure.com/blog/timber curtain wall, where you can get the entire timber curtain wall that we'll also be talking about today for free here. And finally, the Offsite Wood plugin, also the link in the description. This URL is too complicated to spell out. So before moving on with the guests, Michael from Ann Arbor, Michigan, Austin, Seattle, Ottawa, Dublin, Houston, New Hampshire, Atlanta, and from Baja California, and Libreville, Gabon. So people from all around the place. All right. So today's guest is Eli Gould. Eli graduated with a dual major in architecture and forestry from Yale University in 1994. Since then, he has been involved in prefab and construction management with his firm Ironwood brand. He has been the US representative for the Quebec Wood Export Bureau since 2017. I've been collaborating with Eli for a year, helping on multiple projects, including the free Offsite Wood plugin for Revit, which offers wood families that can be filtered with criteria such as dimensions, fire resistance, sustainability, profile, and others. We've also created a bunch of other wood families. All of them are free, including a timber curtain wall, which we're going to be talking about later. So welcome to the show, Eli.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nicholas. It's been awesome working with you in this past year, and I really want to say thanks also for you've created a pretty awesome, an awesome bunch of content, but also a great community of practice around you, and happy to be speaking to your followers here as well.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in. So yeah, we know each other. We've been collaborating together for a year. But I like to start a show going back to the root. I usually like to ask how you got interested in BIM and Revit. In your case, I guess I would ask how you got interested in wood specifically.
Yeah, well, and I guess I should make a correction right up front
Okay, yeah.
to mastering wood structure. I
Hmm.
really consider myself a student of this topic, and
Hmm.
even more so, I've shifted mid-career, or I've been part of a really big change in wood, which we're going to be talking about here tomorrow today. But I did declare a strange major. I was a public school scholarship student to a good school from a very forested rural state, and I walked into a forestry program and I said, I already know all the trees. I want to skip all the prerequisites and I want to take architecture and forestry. And they were like, shut up and choose, kid. Those have nothing to do with each other. Just choose one. And somehow I persisted and got that. And it was not a typical track. And I knew I wanted to do it. And it was actually the only college degree I ever got. I switched to experience-based path to architecture licensure after that. But I was really lucky because years later, when a Canadian firm wanted me to help them with some expertise around automated manufacturing of wood, they didn't have a match for my skill set, and it's very
Hmm.
difficult to get work permits. And so in 2006 or so, I was asked to come up. Some letters were written that I had a mix that wasn't already there, and because of that lucky stroke or that odd sort of focus I had, I was able to be part of the growth of a lot of good small companies in Quebec. First of all, in automated timber, solid timber, heavy timber. But I happened to be there during what I would really consider to be the the founding years of the mass timber, exceptional growth of mass timber expertise, which has been, really centered around a lot of the regional companies near you and I there. So that was a great entree. It was really a good, for me. It was a good thing that my love and interest for this industry let me stretch. I didn't really speak any French at all when I started
Hmm.
coming up. I'm still not not great, but I understand a lot, and it's been really great to be part of the growth of a really solid and not well understood practice community. And so years later, when QWEB, who was a nonprofit wood structure group, asked or was looking for a U.S. representative to help them educate architects, train code authorities, solve problems, help match make projects in the U.S. with good producers in the North. I was asked to do that. It's been a great run with them, and in the last year and a half, we've started building software, which you've had a big hand in, and we're going to talk about more today. So hopefully that covers the odd path I've taken to actually being in the
Yeah.
BIM sphere
Well,
from
you
my
were
love of
in
wood.
the prefab, like you've had your firm, Ironwood brand, right? And you've
Yep,
been
yep,
doing prefab work. That's right.
yeah,
And
and
I know you talked to me about what is called CAD CAM, and honestly, I didn't know a thing about it. I didn't know the software. I didn't know what it
yeah.
was.
I would say CAD CAM almost precedes BIM and
Yes.
or is a subset of it. And I was definitely lucky to be part of it's essentially European programs. Computer aided design and computer aided manufacturing are well known in aerospace and automotive, but people don't really know there's this niche, largely European equipment focus that is running the whole automated wood construction industry. So every machine that runs and knows how to model and cut wood is definitely running on similar platforms. And I stumbled into that through my architecture internship and I wasn't really comfortable going traditional architecture. So I was bound by the experience based path to licensure to work under registered architects for a certain number of years in a certain number of training areas. And I wanted to do so in the industry I already knew and liked. So I had already started my company and I had a sawmill but I figured this was my time to actually better myself. And in doing so, I came into the softwares that really run the industry, and that was fascinating to me. I was not a drafter. I definitely liked to draw, but when I sat at a computer, I wanted to model. I wanted to do something that
Sure.
was going to
Yeah.
automate my whole workflow, and CAD CAM did that for me. And
Hmm.
now I feel like we've come full circle, and BIM has really grown, but is now struggling to achieve its potential when it comes to manufacturing, and that's where you and I really get to work a lot together, which is awesome.
And CAD CAM, I guess CAM means computer assisted manufacturing.
Correct, right. So
Okay.
from the model, and from the model, as many as 30 different machines can come in and cut your actual pieces. So it's like a 3D printer, except for wood is not additive. You have a timber and you sculpt it. So
Hmm.
most of the machines are cutting and fabrication machines, or in the case of handcraft, what I would call handcraft shops, you can have a CAM or a computer aided manufacturing shop assisting people on the shop floor. It doesn't have
Hmm.
to be a machine. So all the things that go into that, shop drawings, lists, all the flow of data into a shop floor is also really a part of the CAM process, and it's often overlooked, but it's a big part of what makes a good shop work really
Hmm.
well.
So you've talked about European software. Which are the biggest one? CADWorks, I guess, that you've mentioned to me
Yeah,
recently.
CADWork is the Swiss software that's generally one of the big automated. There also are others. SEMA is a pretty awesome software. Um, Katia, which is well known. They all go out to automated shops. They all interoperate with each other fairly well through various formats, not just the IFC that we've probably all heard a little bit about and hoped we don't have to learn a lot more about. But there are also formats
Hmm.
that do describe the manufacturing of processes that the Europeans have done a really good job at working together on. So BTL format, for instance. But
Hmm.
there are numerous big wood specific European softwares in CAM, and if I've left anybody out, then I'm sure hopefully they'll add it in the comments
Yeah,
here.
it's interesting that they're all in Europe. Yeah, and yeah, we've talked about that recently. How OpenBIM is pretty big in Europe. IFCs and sharing files between multiple platforms, and even software such as Archicad, which are quite popular in Europe, but not so much in the US. In the US, it's so-called closed software environment that are much more popular and normal. And talking about IFCs here, no one really cares about IFCs.
No, it's true. And actually that's a good point that I should say there are some really good manufacturing programs here specific to wood trusses. I mean, and to wood manufacturing, MyTech and Alpine being our big ones that really they help manufacturers produce a lot of wood buildings, but they're not part of the same the same European tradition. So it's going to get really interesting in the next couple of years how we figure out how to combine the best of what's been done in Europe with the uniquely North American model, and that's definitely where you and I have been working a lot on.
All right, we'll switch to the screen. We have a few slides for you.
Yeah,
Let
this is a
me
hopefully
just.
people are seeing this well. Looks good to me.
There we go. Yeah, so we can see it now. We see the screens. We see both our faces and the slides. So can you see it too, Eli?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is
All
one of
right.
my favorite sort of iconic slides of why I was fascinated by northern Quebec and by this not really well-known wood basket. If you talk about wood in North America, you're really largely going to hear about Douglas fir in the northwest and southern yellow pine in the southeast, and those are the big two. And then quietly from the northeast, this almost like Arctic, circle level, really small trees growing in not in plantations but in natural ecosystems came about, and the sawmill there, who was really working at optimizing for that, decided that to value add they should be laminating and doing more with this uniquely strong fiber. So this fiber is super strong. It only grows for like 5 months a year. So those trees that you see, you won't get a 2x6 out of them, and they're like 80 years old. You can see in a close up here, the actual grain size is just tiny.
Oh wait, let me switch to back to your camera so we can see the wood grain. Yeah. So you have these tiny trees. You cannot build 2x4s with them. So you is that CLT? I just wanted to get that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
so the well, that's actually a glue lam, and
Yeah.
glue lam came first, and the companies, Nordic Structures, I want to give a shout out to them for all the work they've done on building the industry. But you can see here they started saying we should laminate this stuff together. Let's make something simple like a bridge. Let's see if we can value add, see if we can avoid bringing concrete up here, make a nice bridge over this little salmon fishing river, and actually just sample on their own properties. And this is how it grew. I mean, years later, they decided to actually get into building CLT, which is this piece here. I don't know if you have my camera on as well still, but
Yep.
this is a piece of
CLT. Yeah.
which is a cross lamination that makes a panel that begins to introduce a whole bunch of other structural possibilities. So that's the intro to how this came about and how really this source of fiber became my expertise and my entree into the larger mass timber revolution. So I'll be speaking a lot about my perspective on that from within this wood basket, but there of course are others.
All right, let's switch to one inspiration.
Yeah, you and I got into this both for kind of the same reason, and many architects they're really creative people. You choose this discipline thinking you're going to be getting to be creative. Whether or not that's true is often often a question, right?
Yes.
But still, you got to believe buildings have an effect on people, and it feels great to be part of big projects. And then it's not very often in our practice life that a material like wood just changes scale. And if you look at that arrow and zoom in on that or see that, that's a person in a huge building. And I never thought when I was young and learning how to use wood on the home building scale that I would see buildings like this. And I got so interested in that I made a lateral shift to be part of the mass timber movement, because I felt like here's a chance for this climate positive material to be right in the middle of options on much bigger scales. And I don't think that sort of scale shift happens many times in an architect's practice life. And it's a really exciting and great time to be part of this industry because of that. And I think we should also say here whether or not we have data. We have some graphs coming up, but like the other big reason is, we really want this is an urgent time as well. It's not just all actually exciting. And actually, we as an industry, the design professionals, have a huge impact on climate, on the use of, some estimates run really high on how much buildings are taking a bite out of our global footprint. So it's really amazing when you can start using a material, as you see here, that has such a lower impact on so many different metrics. And I'm not saying don't use anything else. I'm just saying if you can learn to do hybrids, if you can learn to blend in wood where concrete and steel used to be used, you're going to be able to have a huge impact. So I also got into this because I felt like it was urgent and it was time to really have that bigger impact. And I'm not really so much in a competitive stance versus these other industries, but I definitely am really glad to help maximize the impact of much more wood in our next generation of buildings.
Yeah, sure. All right. And I think actually we have a couple of questions. And
well, that'd be great, because as you know, I have to cut a little bit early,
yes.
So I want to field people on the fly here as much as possible.
Yeah, sure. Well, later on the show, I'll keep on by myself for the presentations of some of the families. Scar DX, which is a regular of the show, asks, will we see modular housing happening in North America? Normally, client would go with tradition because of modular require economy of scale to make it feasible. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great question, and I certainly hope so. I think, and actually, Nick is going to show in our screenshots that we have outlined a modular stream, and we fully intend for the major structural systems of our plugin to be dealing with modular as well. Um, I have to say honestly to that questioner though that other structural systems have been able to transform through automation and through design more quickly. And for whatever reason, it's taking modular a little longer. And I don't fault them for that because I think modular also has, when you build a modular, or for your listeners, a modular or a volumetric prefab strategy means you're building a box and putting all the contents of that unit in that box. And that's just harder to automate. It's not going to scale up as fast. There's some really cool new things happening. I would point to some really good work, especially in Europe, but we're hoping Canada also is ramping up quite a bit more. But it is harder to automate a, a full end-to-end turnkey construction solution. And I totally agree with your listener that that's a key thing to overcome site labor constraints, but it's going to take longer. I got to be honest about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems such a big challenge, and we've seen Katera, which was trying to tackle this problem, and as sadly stopped business recently. But I think
Right.
they were trying to solve that issue, the modular and prefab aspects of constructions. But it's not easy. It seems super hard. Yeah,
Yeah, they
because
may
of
have
the
been
labor
trying.
aspects.
I know that they may have been trying to do too many things
Hmm.
at once. And I do think, again, the modular practice community has some quiet successes going on, and helping people who've been doing that for a long
Yeah,
time
yeah.
ramp up is probably better than coming in with a top down solution. So it'll be really interesting to see, but I would welcome your questioner to keep checking in on us because we are working on our modular stream.
Yeah.
The digital part is a big part of it, but also there's a lot of shop process that needs to go into that.
All right, another question from Metis Works. What's the reharvesting time for an allotment of black spruce? How is that managed?
That's a great question. So, um, Eastern Canada is the center of one of the largest sustainably certified wood baskets on Earth, and Canada in general is pretty awesome. The cycle times vary though. So those are 80-year-old trees based on their really short growing season, and therefore they're managed as part of a pretty vast, like 10 million acre ecosystem on that 80-year rotation. You can take that same species and go into, say, central Quebec and probably cut that cycle time down to 50 years. Or you could come down to the southern portion of the range of that same species where I live in southern Vermont, and you're probably seeing that side. You could probably harvest that same tree in like 20 years. So it's really fascinating how the cycle time is really related to the bioregion you're in. You can't totally generalize about it. What you can say is there are measures for good forestry practice that involve, are you returning carbon to the soil? Are you are you growing soil as you go? Are you harvesting um, a is the soil or is the forest practice part of your overall carbon fixing? That's a term called biogenic carbon. It's different from the carbon calculation of your building itself. It's did your practices lead to more carbon fixation? And that's a it's still being worked out in terms of the methodologies of it, but as a forestry student, I can be totally sure that I'm in this field because of the potential of forest to fix those carbon. But cycle times vary. I'll just throw in my last piece of this one. I went on a timber trade mission to Central America for a few times over the past few years, and they played with me knowing I was a forestry guy, and they said, stand right here and look at our forest at this little fork in the road. And this is an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old forest. And I just about fell over because the growth rates are so fast. So I think it's awesome that we're dealing with this regionally variable thing that's really a living material.
Yeah, all right. So we've got a couple of more questions, but I think we should move with the slides, and then
Sure.
later on, after some of the slides, we'll go back to questions.
Now, Nick, this next building's right near you, right? Have you been there?
Which one?
The GlaxoSmithKline building?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh,
So
yeah, this
we'll go.
one, this building is in Quebec City. It's pretty close to me right now, and yeah, it's one of the really cool building by Quebec City firm Co Architecture in collaboration with Nordique Structure.
Awesome building, yeah. Multiple national award-winning building.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, it is definitely not some of these early ones. I want to just say as we roll through some of these to make up our time here. These are some of the buildings that proved what wood can do.
Hmm.
And the next one I think is also kind of in that category of you
There
really
we
only
go.
would have thought steel could do a span like that. I mean, it's deceptive. Those are soccer fields in the long direction, and it's probably under what do you think, like 75 or 80 pound snow load. So this
Hmm.
is a massive building, and I love that it proved it. But I think we're now really switching gears as you go forward to the next one. You see, like, this is what I love to like challenge people with now. When are we going to get to the point where our mundane municipal buildings, the buildings that we pack our lunch boxes and go to work in, when are they going to be wood? And I think this is a great indicator of that, especially with the issues of fire, and the people's fear of fire, which in the U.S. is pretty intense.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess this building, what you just said, would be a good time to take a question from Jeff Trovato, who asks, "What's the availability and price point of mass wood slash laminated products around the U.S. and world compared to steel or other more common high capacity members?"
I mean, well, luck. I mean, we are at a unique point right now with wood costs being we
Hmm.
could easily do a seminar on that alone, and I'm glad we don't have to. And I don't want to talk trade policy, but
Yeah.
wood costs are at an all-time high.
Hmm.
Um, I will say that you cannot compare them as exact structural systems next to each other. A year ago, I actually had to talk people into optimizing for wood because everybody was they were buying into wood, but they didn't know how to optimize for it. So they were like, let's just use a lot of wood. And now that the costs are what they are, that's not happening
Hmm.
anymore. And I'm glad because we need to compete, you need to optimize. And to optimize, you can't treat it like a swap of a structural system. You have to design for this structural system and quantify all of its benefits, and then you're really competitive. So, I mean, it's more expensive. I'll say that honestly right away because that will help. But if you really quantify this actively and you look at that building and you say that also has all the fire protection incorporated, it has all the ceiling finishes incorporated, it went up in a fraction of the time of those other structural systems, and it's done when you put it up. What does that really cost? And if you can really calculate that, as some savvy builders are, it's surprisingly competitive if you can optimize for it. So, um, but it's of the big three, it's the most expensive out of the gates. So you have to manage the whole process if you're going to compete.
Yeah, if I can jump ahead with the story. Yeah, there's more and more really great wood building here in Quebec, and one of them I remember is a condo project in downtown, and they originally wanted to use concrete, but because of the weight, it was too heavy. So they decided, I don't know if you know which building I'm talking about, but they decided to switch to mass timber instead. So it can prove to be a good alternative with certain constraints like that.
Great point. Absolutely. There's an actual advantage. 40%, 50% lighter on some size,
Mhm.
some sites.
Right, let's jump to the next one. Yeah,
Hey,
so
you know that building.
I wanted to show this one because I've worked on that project back in a past life, back in 2013 when I was working for I was an intern back then for Atelier 21 Architect. So this is a supermarket. I think as I can show the next slide. So yeah, pretty cool supermarket, right? All was this glulam, I guess.
And it looks like CLT on the roof.
Yeah, CLT on the roof, sure. But super fun project and pretty distinctive supermarket. So I wanted to shout out Atelier 21 and Nordic Structure for this great project. And I don't think I've really shown my work as an architect to the public yet. So I thought it was a good moment to show this product.
Turns out he didn't just start making content on his own. He
Yeah.
actually had to train professionally at it. That's good to know. And that's
Yeah.
awesome because I don't know, these are great buildings in that, that it makes a lot of sense for a natural foods place to be that you're walking and you're buying your food, you're thinking about it. It's sort of like farm to table all over again when you think about what a wood structure really is.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think we have some next ones that will move forward fairly quickly so we can get to your Revit on, but
Sure. Yep.
it's also kind of important, especially with the price of mass timber right now, to remember that wood structure is not just mass timber. It's such a sexy thing, but there's a lot of everyday buildings, especially Boston, you look at, and a lot of light wood frame is happening every day with a really surprisingly advanced BIM practice. So I grabbed these slides because they show this incredible coordination factor going on, all the engineering, a finished product. You combine that with some cellulose insulation, and you have this incredible, actually, there's an amazing amount of carbon fixation going on these, and there's trucks going every day. So I don't want people who can't get mass timber onto their job because of cost to think that they can't have an impact, because there's a lot of other structural systems that we want to help you with. Well, there's also a lot of hybrid. I think that's a great point too, is that it's not really an either or question anymore. It's actually really awesome to see, especially steel and wood frame happening together. BIM is amazing at making that happen well, and having more and more design assist models where the BIM savvy producer is part of your design team in an integrated project delivery format is really, that's where I see some of the most amazing things happen. It doesn't have to be huge jobs. This is just I think it's a small corporate retreat perhaps. But those are really highlights of my everyday project support role. And you see how tight the tolerances are. You also see how they can bring materials like this you see the palm trees in the background. It's pretty awesome to see how much hybrid can help in different environments than we're used to working in. And then there's some really tight, I think who values prefab is often an institutional client. So this is what's probably going to be a famous job soon. This is a university setting, RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, and that topping out ceremony at that building happened 16 days after it started. So that building went up so quickly because everybody was working together with an incredibly tight tolerance BIM collaboration model, and some contracts that help them have rewards for working together. But the BIM model and coordination and the way that happened so quietly in the middle of a neighborhood with students nearby and no concrete trucks in 16 working days is really becoming one of those like proofs. It's not just about the material. It's also about delivery methods, process, and coordination. And I think there's also just a lot of, it's a new material, and sometimes the people who understand it best are ones who have used it before. So there's a lot of quiet projects that I would call corporate headquarter, often European companies. This is actually a Swiss company in the Northeast US who knew CLT and had a mixed facility with R&D and manufacturing and office space, and they jumped in and went right to work with knowing exactly what they were doing. And if you see on the left, you have this tuned, optimized 30 by 30 grid, which is hybrid. On the top, you have these awesome pre-cut holes. And then on the right, you have this, you see the multi-direction material. You can just cantilever in two directions and float a landing for a spiral staircase out there, like you didn't even have to worry about it. And I think those are the sort of things that show you the sort of the well-handled design moves of somebody who knows a new medium best, and that's awesome to be part of seeing that. It doesn't get publicized a lot, so I'm glad to share it here. And I think I'm not going to spend much time here, so you can get back to the digital side of it, but it's also just important to remember, like I was saying, that the mass timber or the wood structure movement is not just mass timber. And when it is mass timber, it's not just CLT. So even in your engineered lumber, even in your component assemblies, you can have a lot of say over the different variations, how the structure really works. And that's why we're trying to build tools for you that help you understand what those differences are. Oh, this is one that's we just had to share this one. It's also in the Northeast, especially in these heritage building scenarios. What do you do with a lightweight structure? Can you actually provide a new lightweight structure over the top of an old heritage building? And not on your first job. That's not a rookie move right there, but it's really beautifully executed in this case. It's in downtown Montreal, and I think there's a lot of potential for urban infill among the practitioners who are able to really do that well. So maybe coordinating as-built and historical legacy data with new structure data could be an awesome BIM application.
Yeah, do we know who are the architects on this project? I think I forgot to add it.
I don't, and I wish I did, but
okay,
that
maybe I'll add it to the description of the video.
Yeah, we should. That was almost going to be the Nordic Structures office. That was one of their early work with a great local firm who did an awesome thing there. So let's follow up.
I'll find it later. Sure.
Yeah. Oh. And in the U.S., we're trying to do the same thing in Boston. We're not as good at it yet, but it's happening, and it's cool because there's a lot of high value downtown real estate that could go taller. So that's a Boston project I was on this year.
What's with the snow melter?
Yeah, well, and that sort of came from, that's one of my to teach a lot of things. So when I got to one job and I saw they were spreading like sand, like because they were doing it in the winter, which you can do, and they were spreading like road salt and sand on it, so all the workers didn't fall off, and it was leaking through and leaching. And I was like, oh no, this is a finished building. Like, hey guys, can we find something else there? And so the construction manager on that job actually found a uncolored traction melt, non-corrosive traction grit thing so they could walk on the icy Boston job site without ruining the finished ceiling.
All right. Yeah, I think we'll start moving a little faster.
Go for it.
But yeah, this is a French wood structure specialist. What's the name of that person again, so people can learn?
Yeah, Dr. Sandoz, who headed up CBS Lift Team, is an example of an amazing French wood connoisseur who has incredible insight into structural systems, has gone in a different direction, and is worth a follow. You should check out what they're doing.
So Dr. Sandoz.
Yeah, you should really check them out. And they were nice enough to come and speak at our Caribbean symposium this year, and are going to be a big part of the movement towards materials that don't always use glue. So I think they're going to be a big player there.
So Benoit says in the chat, the architect, I guess, from this building is Lemay. So Lemay is probably the biggest architecture firm in Quebec.
Thank you, Benoit.
So thanks. Yeah, Benoit, shout out. And yeah, I think we'll be moving faster, but you want
I think that's it for me. I mean, basically at the end of the day, the wood industry is providing about half the building materials on Earth with about 4% of the actual energy. So even though we're doing a good job, what we have to do now is we have to move upstream and be part of more projects, which is really why we started building tools and started hiring folks like Nick to help us build great tools for architects that would really work well. So without further ado, I think you should jump into showing them that. And if I have to cut out very soon, I'm going to let you roll with the Revit experts here.
Yeah, well, I wanted to show the Offsite Wood plugin. So yeah, I think it would be important for you to mention a few things, how you why you decided to create this plugin, for whom it is, and what are the different streams. So can you
Yeah,
talk a
so
little
I
bit
mean,
about that?
sure. I mean, the wood structure industry is so varied, and Revit as a tool was so native to concrete and steel that we felt like we couldn't just wait for the features to come along. We had to actually tackle putting components and systems and families right in front of users who wanted to use them at the point when they were using them. And we had to divide them into streams because there's so many different types of systems. So the first stream is loadable components in the sort of post and beam or column families. And then that was fairly straightforward. The mass timber floors were more difficult because it is a new material. So it exists next to your floor system families, but it really has qualities that your concrete slab on deck don't. So there aren't even enough fields in Revit yet to describe a longitudinal material with a weak axis strength factor. But we started with dimensionally coordinated mass timber slabs in our second stream. And then in our third stream, we really put a big umbrella over all of the different wood enclosure systems, from panelized enclosures through to the actual timber curtain walls, which you helped us with. Those are all the envelope systems that can include wood in them. And then for right now, like I mentioned to the earlier question, we know that we need to build software for modular. We're not quite ready to, but we're going to build the stream in so that we can at least share some of the work we're doing in Quebec right now to deliver elder care facilities and schools and other public projects with a modular delivery method.
Yeah,
So
so this is a future stream, so the modular components are not there yet, but you're still working that. But meanwhile, the three other streams, so the post and beam families, and so yeah, something important to mention: these are not necessarily made for structural engineers, right? They're made mostly with architects in mind.
yeah, if you open up mass timber floors, we'll show a quick
Yeah,
sort there. So this is just to get dimensionally accurate products that are sorted according to your criteria. So you are going to choose a structural system, but it'll also get you design criteria that will let you choose sustainability or product certifications or the level of your testing, at which point it'll return products below. You can download them immediately from in your app and go to work in your model
yeah.
without
Click on load like
further.
this. Yeah, basically you have these design criteria, and you just select the species of wood, the fire resistance. So it says loaded successfully, and yeah, you can filter, and yeah, these are made for schematic design, I guess, to for the architects when you need families, or maybe they are not, you don't have an engineers that went through them yet, but you still want them on your Revit file to create preliminary plans.
Exactly.
So somebody asked in the chat, where's the link for this plugin? Yeah, somebody else answered. You can find it in the description
Yep.
of the video, the link to the Autodesk App Store to download this plugin. So I think you have to jump quite soon, right? Do you have?
I do. I do.
All
My
right.
daughter has a mission I have to help her with. I really appreciate your sharing of this with your practice community. I really appreciate all the quality content you built here. And I know
Mm-hmm.
the Revit experts who are watching are going to love to see the nuts and bolts of
Mm-hmm.
what you built for us. We couldn't have done it without you. And I really want to thank everybody who who's in the audience to learn some more about wood structures.
All right, so Eli will be leaving, but I'll be staying for another 15 minutes so I can demonstrate some of the families that are. I guess the timber curtain wall is not yet available to the plugin, but I have created a link in the video description so you can download the family directly. So anyway, Eli is gone, so bye, Eli. So I'll be on my own. Just a minute here, folks. Let me end the Zoom call. All right. so yeah, just glancing at the chat, ScoreDX says Autodesk used to have Mass Timber plugin, but removed it for later release. For shame, now the only way to have access to wood framing is paid plugin like AgaCAD. Yeah, I know. Wood is a little behind in Revit, and think that's an issue that Eli and his team saw and decided to do something about it with this plugin. So yeah, have a look at the plugin. And now I'll be showing some of the families that are available through it. It seems like my Revit is in French, not sure why, but I don't think it matters. Okay, something that the first families I wanted to show, these are actually detail items families. Because architects, we still need to create detailing. I mean, 3D modeling gets the most attention, and yes, it is for sure the most important part of a project. But creating great detailing is still important, and there's not a lot of high quality detail families out there. So with Eli, I've created these CLT families. These are based on the Nordic theme. So all the sizing are provided by Nordic Structure, which you can work with if they're pretty big here in Quebec, but you can also work with them if you're on the northeast of the USA. So you can see all the different layers, 3 layers, 5 layers, 7 and 9. And the way they're made, the dimensions are fixed, but you'd still have arrows to play with them like this. So they can easily be added to your project. And yeah, the way I made this pattern is Eli sent me a picture of a CLT, and I've put it in Revit and draw a line above it. And then I've created a pattern using the amazing free PyRevit plugin. If you type PyRevit pattern maker in Google, you'll find it, because obviously it's impossible to create a pattern like this using a text file, right? All right, so these are the CLT detail items families. Let's see what else we have in store for you. This is the timber kern wall. I keep it for last. So this one is a file that I've also linked in the show notes. You can download it at revitpure.com/live. All that content is free. And this one contains both detailed components and floor assemblies. So we'll go through them. I didn't create these families. I have a friend who also worked with the QWEB team called Laurent Bélanger, who created them. But these are detail items that you can adjust like this. And the sizing of the truss will be automatically adjusted. You have a few different versions. You also have the cross section. You have a partial. So these are all made for your detailing needs. But enough for 2D components. Let's have a look at 3D items. So these families are actually made from floors, real floors. So let me go to, do we have a 3D view open in this one? I think I'll have to create a floor plan. Okay, so I will create a section like this, and this is a floor. You can see the little preview in the floor. So a profile, you know, how we can embed profile, which is usually used for a steel deck. But Laurent, who's worked on this family, used a truss profile of 14 inches that he's added like this in the structural of the materials. Which means that if you create a section, yeah, I think it has to be, yeah, exactly. And they only appear if you select the view level of detail to fine. So you can see what happens with these floor families when you cut inside of them. The profiles show up. So pretty cool. So instead of, and obviously you can add other layers like the plywood, or whatever sheeting that will go above the truss. So this is super helpful. Although the only thing you have to be careful about is if I create a section on the other way. Yeah, the profile is the other way around. So this specific truss profile only shows on one direction. All right, so I'll let you guys play with the family by yourself. Do I have my link open? Oh, not this one. Here, if you go at revitpure.com/live, everything is free. It's yeah, this one over here. Download 2D plus 3D truss container files, so you can download the right thing right there. Michael Ball says this is amazing. Yeah, it is. Yeah, Lauren's kind of a genius with these families. He really did a good job. All right, so these are for the wood truss. Yeah, but people want to see real truss. Yeah, sure. I guess something that I would say is they don't show up in 3D view. It's only in section. So Score DX is a good point. People still want to see the real truss. I would say this is made for preliminary design. If you're getting started and you want to quickly create a section, it's a great way to do it and have the matching depth of the floor. It's a great way. Like eventually you can switch to having a real truss families, 3D families. But you know, in some projects like houses, for example, maybe modeling all of the truss will be overblown, right? Michael asks, is there a direction to tell which direction the trusses go in a plan? I think so, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, if I modify, like right now, you can see the line here. I don't do this often. So I can switch the span direction. If I click on this line, it should now be modified. So if I go to this view, or maybe it was a workaround you needed to do. I'm not the original creator of this family, or perhaps you just need to rotate the family so it works. Maybe not. But anyway, very useful for townhouses. Yeah, sure. So it's a good question, Michael. I'm not sure about the direction of the trusses. I'm sure there's a way to get it adjusted. I would have to investigate a little further for this. But since we're getting close to 4 p.m. here, I would really wanted to show you guys. I think I'll switch to Revit in English, though. I don't know why I'm using the French version. So I've been sending emails about this already. There's a blog post about the timber curtain wall. And this was a huge project to create. At first, when Eli first approached me about creating a timber curtain wall, I think first perhaps I should show timber curtain wall what we're talking about. It's a beautiful product. It's made by Unicel here. You can see an example. So although you can technically have a wood cap outside, usually it's an aluminum cap, but timber on the inside. A few more examples. So beautiful architectural product. And if I go back to Revit, so if you download the file, you can find the link. This is what you receive. So I'm a big fan of a startup page, custom startup page. So there's a lot of things happening here. I made a whole instructions there. So how many times do you download families online, like from BIM Objects or any other website, and you just don't know how to use the families and there's no guide? So to avoid that, I love container files, which includes all the instructions. I tell you how to use the families. I even include my email address if you need some support with this. So it's a curated family. Let me go to a 3D view. And yeah, I've created this this kind of showroom style container file with examples of this timber curtain wall. And yeah, this was a huge challenge to create because, you know, curtain wall they're not the families by themselves. Curtain walls are what is system families, but with individual components that are external or loadable families, like the mullion profiles, for example. But one of the limitations of curtain walls and mullions especially is that you cannot have a multiple material for a mullion. So the workaround that I had to use is the mullions are the cap and the part where the glass is, but the mullions themselves are embedded in custom curtain panels like this. So let me edit the family. So you can see this is a curtain panel, which includes all these families, which are controlled using visibility parameters. It's this trick I've used in the past to create kind of spider joints curtain walls. You can use a similar feature, but to have different materials, that's the workaround I've had to use. If you download the container files, you also have a double sliding door families included like this. I'm also a pretty big fan. Let me go to, I have. All right, so here's a plan view. I'm a pretty big fan of using the level of detail system. So you can view, this view here is using coarse, but I can switch it to fine instead. You can see what, let me use, yeah, that's a little too thick. Let me change the scale. That's better like this. So if I change the level of detail from coarse to fine, you can see that the detailing is embedded inside of the families. And I'll admit it was kind of complicated to create because there's multiple families here. There's the mullions, which have a profile embedded inside the mullion profile. And then you have the curtain panels. And so everything has to work together. And when you switch the size of the cap or the depth of the mullion, all the families are made to be automatically adjusted, including the detailing. Alfredo asks, will you be able to stream topic regarding schematic design where materials and details are not yet defined? Alfredo, are you talking specifically about wood or just about using Revit in general? So you can specify. All right, and something else that I wanted to show is to modify the sizing of the different wood parts. Let me go to a 3D view here. And let's say that I only keep this one. I will create a selection box to keep only this specific curtain wall family. And you see this type is 60T, which means 60 millimeter width for the mullions. And T stands for triple, so for triple glazing. And the way I control the sizes of the mullions, since all the families have different curtain panels, is you can go to the Manage tab, to the global parameters. And now I know that this type is, did I say 60T again? Yeah, 60T. So I'm going to the global parameters here. And if I scroll down, I can see all the 60T parameters. So I have bottom wood depth, the cap depth, intermediate wood depth, and vertical wood depth. So a few parameters. So let's experiment with some of these values. I will switch this one to 140, for example. So it can take about 15 seconds to regenerate since it has to recreate all the single families that are part of this. Hopefully you don't change the dimensions too often. Oh, that's done. Okay, so you see that the dimension here switched to 140 and it worked for all the families. What else can we do? The cap depth, maybe not. And I will show you something else. Let's say that I want to use, so this is the top wood depth. Let's say I put a value of 1,000. But you know what? The wood manufacturer, the creator of this, doesn't want you to use 1,000 because that's too much and that doesn't represent dimension you would actually use. Yeah, it seems to be small glitches here. For some reason, I might have to adjust these specific families. It is still theoretically in beta mode, a few things to adjust. But normally what I've done is that for all the families, there is what I call a user depth and an actual depth. And these values are different. And I will show you what I mean exactly if I edit a family. And I go here to the parameter. So we have this this huge formula here. I think it's a little trick I shared on Twitter recently. All right, so you can see, for example, user vertical wood depth. And you can enter any value you want. Like in this case, it's 280, for example. But the value that is actually being used by Revit is here, the actual vertical wood depth. And here I use if statement. And if the value is below 160, it will be 160. So 160 is the minimum. And I've set the maximum to 340. Because that's what the manufacturer told me that the preferred sizing would be. So anything below that wouldn't really work for this kind of system. And the sizing of the wood also comes in 20 millimeters increments. So I've used a round function here. You can see it's called round. To round any value you enter. Let me give you an example. For example, if I put 283, you can see that the value here has remained at 280 because it's not. This is not in increments of 20. Let me change the value again. Let's put 800 here. You can see even though I enter 800, the actual vertical wood depth stays at 340. So it is basically a way to control dimensions, so user don't go with dimensions that cannot be used in real life. So I think it's a cool trick that you can use for your own families if you wish. And yeah, I mean, you could download this family and just copy and paste this formula if you like it. Right, and many questions, people saying, how can we get these families? I'll show again. If you go, well, you have, if you want to download all the families, there's a link, revitpure.com/live. And there's the show notes, and the first link is Tim Birkenwald family. You go here, you have a little form where you can download the family, and I have a blog post about how to use this system, basically. So by trying it, yeah, it was pretty long to test all the families, pretty complicated. Well, it was complicated to build, hopefully simple to use, but there might still be a couple of adjustments to make. So I'll be, if you guys have any other questions, time to ask, else I'll soon be ending the show. So Alfredo asked Revit workflow in general. Topic regarding schematic design where materials and details are not yet defined. Yeah, Alfredo, I have a course called Design, which is made to create great presentation views. I don't know if that's what you're interested in. And else, in the coming weeks, an upcoming live show, I want to do something to help beginners in the early stages. So stay tuned about upcoming shows. Michael asks, sorry, back to the truss floors. Maybe a dumb question. Is the Revit floor profile version new in Revit 2021? No, it's been there for a long time. I don't know which update it has been available, but it's not something new at all. So Basil asks, how can we get these families? You can use this link, revitpure.com/live. It's also in the description to get all the families. And ScarDX says, I use this all the time if I have to prevent users from typing 0 value to break the family. Yeah, I've also used this to for door families, for example. where you can control the swing. But if you put in an angle of 0, sometimes it breaks the family. So you can create a little script where you correct values. Somebody types in a value that would break the family. So it can be done to protect your family so it doesn't break. Or it can also be done to control the dimensions that you don't want user to use at all. Maybe some manufacturer's limitations. All right, so once again, thanks to Eli for the beginning of the show to present all that amazing stuff about wood. I'm a huge fan of wood. It's a beautiful product, usually CLT and glulam. It's great for the environment. It's great for climate change. I just love wood. And the next show, as I mentioned earlier on, with the legendary Revit Kid, next week, Wednesday at 3 p.m. And we'll be talking, the title of the show is The Art of Teaching Revit. So it will be more of a discussion about what it means to be a BIM content creator. And yeah, that's it basically. So thanks to everybody. Don't forget to download the families. They're all free. Don't forget to download the plugin. And see you next week at 3 p.m. So bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.